Ed King's life was an unlikely tapestry of musical intersections, a Californian who found himself at the very heart of the American South's most iconic anthem, Sweet Home Alabama. Born in Glendale, California, King's early life gave no hint of the Southern rock legend he would become. He first emerged in the bright lights of the 1960s, playing psychedelic rock with Strawberry Alarm Clock, a band that briefly shot to fame on the back of their chart-topping hit Incense and Peppermints. It was a sugary, dreamlike song, the product of a generation dabbling in escapism. That world seemed far removed from the gritty, hard-drinking Southern swagger that Lynyrd Skynyrd would come to embody. But, in music, as in life, paths often cross in the most unexpected ways. Strawberry Alarm Clock's success brought the band into contact with the Beach Boys and other Californian greats. Yet, it was an entirely different encounter during a tour in the late 1960s that would alter the trajectory of King's career. During one of their tours, they shared the stage with a little-known Southern rock band out of Jacksonville, Florida, Lynyrd Skynyrd. The connection was made.
Our opening band were the guys in Lynyrd Skynyrd, who had just called themselves Lynyrd Skynyrd, just started to call themselves that. And they only had 2 originals. The rest of the songs they did were all Zeppelin, Cream, Hendrix, Yardbirds, you know.
I see.
Yeah. So they were our opening band, and I really took to Ronnie like crazy, because even though he hadn't really shown any great writing skills, still he had these 2 songs that were really good, and he had so much charisma.
Oh yeah.
And he and I got together all the time, and we'd do stuff and talk and play a little bit.
But it wasn't until several years later that fate called on King again. Skynyrd was now rising, and King, drawn to their sound, found himself opening for them in Jacksonville in 1968. The raw energy of Ronnie Van Zant and his bandmates captured King's imagination, and it wasn't long before he was invited to join the Southern Rockers. A Californian playing in what would become the definitive Southern rock band, it was a contradiction of sorts, yet it worked. King initially came on board as a bassist, a role that would only be temporary. His heart belonged to the guitar, and soon he would assume his rightful place as the third guitarist, adding layers of richness to the band's already heavy sound. It was during this time, the early 70s, that tensions about America's South were rising. Neil Young, the outspoken Canadian, had aimed his lyrical scorn at the region's troubled history, releasing Southern Man in 1970, followed by Alabama in 1972.
Oh, we should do an ooh there. Under banjos playing through the broken glass, through that F, to that ooh. Do you know what I mean? I know, like it.
These were not gentle rebukes, but sharp criticisms of the South's racist past, its struggles with integration, and its reluctance to confront its darker chapters. Young's words landed hard, especially in the South, where such indictments were viewed as oversimplifications. The response, when it came, was swift and clear. Skynyrd would have their say, and it was Ed King, the man from California, who would help craft that response. The story of the creation of Sweet Home Alabama is, like many great rock tales, almost accidental. It began with a riff, a simple picking pattern that King played repetitively in rehearsals. Gary Rossington, always with an ear for a hook, urged him to keep playing it, and soon Van Zant began weaving his lyrics around it.
I got there, I plugged in my Strat, and right off of that I went...
And yeah, I remember very clearly. And after it was done that day, Ronnie looked at me, he goes, there's our Ramblin' Man. You know, the Allman Brothers had Ramblin' Man, it's their big hit, and that was our Ramblin' Man. And we just knew it was a hit record, you know. It was funny, MCA didn't release that first. They didn't, I guess, hear it as a hit. They released, I guess, Don't Ask Me No Questions off the Second Helping album first. And of course, Alabama was a clear-cut hit off that record.
The result was an anthem that would define both the band and an era. It is impossible to separate Sweet Home Alabama from the context in which it was born. The song was more than just a musical counterpunch to Neil Young's criticisms. It was a reclamation of Southern pride, albeit a pride tempered by self-awareness. In calling out Young by name, Van Zandt and his bandmates were not lashing out at the Canadian personally, but rather taking issue with his portrayal of the South. For all its history, for all its flaws, the South was home, and it was a home worth defending, not in its injustices, but in its spirit and its people. This was the sentiment King helped distill into those three unforgettable chords. The song's enduring popularity suggests that the message resonated far beyond the Mason-Dixon line. As Rossington once said, "No matter where you're from, Sweet Home Alabama or Sweet Home Florida, you can relate." Yet for King, a man rooted in the flower child ethos of California, this Southern narrative must have sometimes felt alien. He was, after all, the product of a different time and place, a musician who had cut his teeth on psychedelic rock, not Southern blues. His presence in the band was an anomaly, a West Coast hippie playing alongside rough-edged Southern boys. And while the bandmates shared a mutual respect, their lifestyles often clashed. The world of Lynyrd Skynyrd was one of excess and aggression, a far cry from the laid-back vibes of the Sunset Strip. Van Zandt, the charismatic but often volatile frontman, could be especially difficult. Stories of the band's infighting are legion, and King was often caught in the crossfire. In 1975, King had finally had enough. After a disastrous show in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where technical problems left him exposed on stage, he packed his bags and walked away. It wasn't just the incident itself, broken guitar strings and a furious Van Zandt berating him afterward, that pushed him over the edge. It was the accumulation of tensions, the constant friction between a man of peace and a band that thrived on confrontation. "I'm the hippie from Southern California," King later said. "I'm not digging the violence part." And so, quietly, he left. Despite his departure, King's legacy within Skynyrd remains undeniable. Though he is often overlooked in histories of the band, his contributions are monumental. His guitar work, particularly on Sweet Home Alabama, has become the stuff of legend. The intro to the song, the simple count-in of 1, 2, 3, is as iconic as the music itself. It is a testament to the simplicity and power of great rock and roll, yet King never sought the spotlight, content to let others claim center stage. He often credited Rossington with the creation of the song's main riff, insisting that his own part was merely an embellishment, a vine curling around a sturdy branch. King's modesty belied his immense talent. As one contemporary guitarist put it, "If that was all he was known for, I think that would be worth remembering." But King was more than just the co-writer of Sweet Home Alabama. He was part of a movement, part of a sound that defined a generation, even if he sometimes felt like an outsider in his own band. It was this duality, the Californian in the Southern rock band, the pacifist among fighters, that made him such an intriguing figure. In later years, King would look back on his time with Skynyrd with a sense of gratitude, calling himself the luckiest guitar player on earth. He was under no illusions about his place in the history of rock gods, yet he understood the significance of his work. His riffs, his notes, his presence, they helped shape a sound that has endured long after the final chord faded. King's death in 2018 at the age of 68 marked the passing of an era, a final farewell to a man whose music continues to reverberate across time. Lynyrd Skynyrd may have been born in Jacksonville, Florida, but part of its soul came from California, carried by a soft-spoken guitarist who, for a time, helped define the very essence of the American South.